Welcome to the Republican Professor. This morning, we have a very special guest, Dr. Harry Edwards. Thank you for being here, Dr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Harry.
Good to see you.
And
It's
we
my
got
pleasure
Curtis.
and honor.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. We got Curtis joining us from Texas, from his
Howdy.
palatial estate there with those books. I always have to mention the books, and Harry's got a bunch of books behind him. And Harry, are you in Southern California?
I'm in Southern California. Yes.
I could tell from your accent because you have that kind of a Southern accent.
Southern California
Like,
accent.
I'm from Southern California, boy. Oh, I don't say hella over here, boy. You in the wrong part of California, boy. Well, you got a lot of books there, Harry. Have you read all those books?
I at least know the table of contents from each of them. So. That's the important thing.
There's a lot of uses of books. People don't realize. I mean, it's not just decoration, and it doesn't necessarily mean you've read every word. You can really benefit from a book merely by having it around for you to look at to look something up.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to worry if the text is changed from the time you put it on the shelf to the time you've taken it off.
Snap.
And that the author has changed their
snap.
minds too, right?
That's right.
Oh, snap.
No, I do want to say something about books just being on the shelf. No, that's a keen insight there, Lucas, because as you know, I used to manage the Biola University bookstore, and it was really one of my favorite things to do.
That's why you were always in the bookstore when I was there?
That's right.
I thought you thought that I would manage the bookstore because we always saw each other and it was always in the bookstore.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. But it's I don't know. Hopefully you like some of the books that were there because those are all my choosings. And that was a fun thing. And the advantage I got, which later led to me being really thrilled about further education, is the fact that I was curious about a lot of things. And so when the book sales people come along, they show me all of the recent publications. And so that was such a good advantage because they tell me about it. That was part of my job. They tell me about each of the books. And then I would just kind of store it in my mind and go, yes, all right, if I need to know something about this and this and this, I can refer to that book. If a professor is asking about, what's the latest on this, then maybe I can recommend something. But that was thoroughly enriching. And then I'd order them and they'd be on the bookshelf. And so during break times or during, non-work hours, I can see all of the books on the shelf and I just grab them and just peruse them really briefly. So I would know at least what the author is trying to, the case he's trying to make and trying to defend. That was huge. So so years later, right, when I'm doing a dissertation, it was just fun. It was just fun getting all of these books together, and I go, "Yep, I know where I'm going with this."
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Running a bookstore has got to be about as good as being a librarian. It's very similar. I remember in undergrad learning about Hume being kind of a laughingstock when he came out with his History of England. And he had a really hard time getting a job after that. And he became a librarian. and it's like, well, what more, if you can't teach or get a job, what more influential job could you have than being a librarian at your local library? I mean, it's
there you go. Is that kind of like the trajectory of higher learning,
right?
Folks? There's always that you can fall back.
That's what a PhD will get you today. You know, librarian job.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that's a tough job in Scotland, though. I mean, because the Scottish libraries are freezing. They're freezing cold, and the heating systems back then. Well, I don't know. Maybe they had better because they probably took more care to have a fireplace in the library. But yeah, I'm not sure if they probably have taken those out, but yeah, and the lighting too is not what it it's not what it used to be. There's a lot of natural light, but that people use, but candles. I mean, that's a really hard way to run a library. Can you imagine using candles? Because it gets dark
Yeah.
early that far north,
That's
and
true.
you're using candles, which is an inherent fire hazard. And so
next to
it
old
sounds
books.
actually kind of
Around
like a
books,
hard
which is
job
an
to
inherent
me.
fuel.
Very, very cold. And thank God you're using candles. You want the candles because it warms up.
It's
the
almost
place.
as bad as running an oil refinery by candlelight, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Oh my goodness.
bookstores are not what they used to be, though, Harry. And I don't want to make anybody defensive or anything like that, because I know you're not at the bookstore anymore, but there was a specific time when I started going to the Biola bookstore that I did not have the joy like I used to. And it was because the selections were not there. It's like, where are the books? I can buy
Yeah.
coffee mugs. I can buy a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
I can buy, I mean, I wouldn't even doubt it was like a Foot Locker, and I could get like size 10 running shoes or something. Like I could get, a used Toyota. Anything except for like a daggum book that I can hold in my hand.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know
I
what
know.
happened with it. So you said
I
it was
know, that's
enriching though. So we
Yeah,
trust
it
you.
was enriching for sure. And
Well,
you
based
know,
on what they were charging for the management textbook, I guess I can see why it was enriching for you, for the
Yeah.
bookstore. It's like $150. But yeah, I guess that didn't go to you, right? You didn't get all of it.
No. They went to my bosses. No. Well, I mean, and then they leased it too 6 years ago. So that was an interesting development, leasing it to a non-Biola entity, which
Oh.
I mean, you can imagine just the incongruity. I mean,
That is bizarre.
yeah, that is bizarre. That's hard. So I think just in general, I'm
How
not
much
saying
money
it's
did they
just it-
save by doing that? Was
yeah,
it
I don't want to
significant?
get into that one. Yeah, I don't want to get into that one.
Well,
It's
but are
just a
students just
sign of
not
the
buying
times.
books anymore? They're not
Yeah,
buying books?
pretty much. They're just not buying books. People are just
That
not
is
buying books anymore.
so sad.
Yeah.
Harry, how do
Right now,
you
yeah,
sleep at night knowing that that's
I
true?
know. By God's grace.
Harry, you
Yeah.
founded I asked you earlier if you knew who Sanjay Merchant was. We had him on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Mm.
Do you know him?
I know him. He's a good friend. So he and I worked together at apologetics.com 20 years ago. In fact, he was very instrumental at what I called developing apologetics.com 2.0 on the website. So I think the story was he told me more than 20 years ago when he was a theology student at Talbot, and he was learning and studying theology, philosophy, and apologetics. And back then, the internet was sort of a novelty back then, not as developed as it is now. And he goes, well, there's got to be an apologetics.com. Let me look it up, right? So sure enough, he stumbled on our site and he goes, oh my goodness, this is not a good witness for the world. Let me contact the whoever these guys are and offer my services. And so that's how things started between he and I, and our friendships grew, and he did all sorts of stuff for apologetics.com, including hosting radio shows and doing conferences with us. So that was really good. I know he's in Chicago right now, I think, teaching at Moody, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, it's
He did our episode on the Trinity.
There you go.
Spent a couple hours with him.
One of his expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was trying to get him to say that God is mother too, but he just wouldn't go there. So I'll just summarize the episode. It was 2 hours of me calling him a misogynistic pig, basically. Just different language. Wow. And just berating him. Did God not have a daughter? So what exactly do you have against women? Just various iterations of that.
Yeah.
You did talk about the weather.
I'm
at some
glad your
point.
viewers and listeners are gracious. They can just edit that clip that you just said and and say, "Hey, look at Lucas, a
Yeah, poor Sanjay.
deconversionist."
Actually, it would probably be a lot of street cred for Sanjay. He held his ground. Yeah. So
Great.
yeah, it was a really good episode. He gave an argument for the Trinity, which I didn't expect him to do, from philosophy. That was kind of a treat that he gave us. And we talked a little bit about the biblical support. Of course, you do need to have philosophy come in at some point. Do you have a background in philosophy? What's your academic background?
Well, my philosophy, the extent of my philosophy is just self-taught from reading apologetics and theology. But I do love philosophical theology. I'm a perfect being advocate type guy.
Wait, hold on. You are a perfect being. That's what I have.
Perfect being advocate, perfect being theology advocate. There you go.
An advocate.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm a fan.
When we booked you, we had no idea you were a perfect being.
You didn't know that, huh?
You just gave us the title.
Yeah.
You just gave us the title for the episode.
Perfect that being, to me, yeah.
Harry.
The perfect being. There you go. I want to say that kind of spurred me on to learning not learning all I can, but that got me very interested in philosophy through I guess Anselm's perfect being theology. So so I think one can go in all sorts of good directions when you start there, so yeah, I love that. But I don't ask me about modal logic or whatever, or plumb the depths
Can I ask
of
you about why I can't ask you about modal logic?
Sure. Because I don't know anything.
You see how deep I am?
Yeah. But no, my goodness, it was Sanjay and I and the rest of the guys. Our idea of hanging out was talking about those kinds of things. In fact, one time,
So you were nerds, basically.
We were nerds, yeah. One time we were trying to actually come up with a good cult or religion that would satisfy all of the objections, but we couldn't come up with one better than Christianity, so we failed.
Just have to default to Christianity.
Yeah.
Harry, did you grow up around books and reading? Was that prized in your family?
So I grew up in the Philippines. Part of my life was spent there. I was blessed to have been raised by a loving family, an extended loving family who was and continues to be involved in church. And at the time, obviously, I didn't know that was anything. That was just life. And by the grace of God, I never got into this rebellious stage. I was questioning, though, and I think my default understanding of my faith back then was almost naturalistic, which I think most evangelicals are right now. That they don't know that. Yeah. But it's not like it was a struggle, but for a while, even though I grew up in the church and I knew the Lord from the very beginning, it was more of a Pascalian thing, meaning fire insurance, or the odds are better in believing that God exists. So, but the joy, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the adventure really wasn't there until many years later in college, and I was here already in the US when I got interested in apologetics. So apologetics really buoyed my faith to another level. And yeah, I've been just turned on by God since then, and that was really cool. And the story for me was, if there are people like me who grew up in the church and were, satisfied to a level with our faith, but all of the fullness and the joy and the excitement and all of that wasn't there, I figured there must be more of me out there who just needs something like apologetics to really confirm the faith. In a way, like, for instance, I know that I'm sitting on this chair, and the faith I have in this chair is even just part of me. I don't think twice about whether or not I'm gonna fall on this church. It's just I rely on it, and when I think about it, I go, thank goodness, and this whole thing works. So is our faith in the Lord kind of like that, where we can count on him because it's just part of our life? We don't need to inspect it deeply. And if we do, we're amazed by how everything just works, right? And that, to me, that's taking a peek into God's glory while we're here on earth. Yeah.
That's a great analogy. That's great. I love that you said, Harry, that you said, by the grace of God, I didn't have that rebelliousness.
Yeah.
Because I remember, and I'm sure you remember conversations. We've all had conversations with friends when we were younger. Some came to the faith later. Some grew up like yourself. And it seemed like there was always almost a jealousy sometimes of people who'd grown up in the church, of not having that bad guy or bad girl story to have been saved from,
The
and
razzle dazzle testimony, right? Yeah. I know.
And it always baffled me, because I came from that side, and I was always jealous of guys like you, that, like, why didn't I have that kind of safety to grow up in? Why didn't I have, what was that all about? And those were my conversations with God. But it was just that it's that total classic thing of grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
I'd choose your side of the lawn anytime.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, I took it for granted, and it took me a while to realize, oh my goodness, thank you, Lord. In fact, when I graduated from Biola for my undergrad years, I struggled with picking a major, and there were some external pressures to do this, do that. And then finally, I just raised my hands up, and I go, what am I really good at? I go, oh, church stuff. I go, oh my goodness. So I switched right away when I go, all right, Christian ministries. Oh my goodness. I mean, my heart was just full, and everything just made sense. It clicked. It was easy. And I felt more equipped, and I go, oh, well, I wish I'd known this sooner, but well, again, part of that was my independence. I came here by myself, and to me, just getting here to the U.S. was an amazing accomplishment for me, and that's a whole different story in and of itself. But yeah. So, anyways, and that began my process. Now, it'd be interesting to have a discussion about, was that really when I was saved, or that period of my life where, well, again, interesting things to talk about. But again, you said we can talk about anything here, so I'm a Calvinist, all right, so no shame there. And so I do believe that God.
Did you vote for Calvin in 2016?
That was determined, right? That was all determined, brother. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe the realization of that came later. My salvation came later. That's when a lot of Christians will say, that's when I got saved. But no, I think you were saved way before then.
What part of the Philip?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe it kind of maps on if you're going to ask what part of the Philippines he's from. I was going to ask, I've never heard your story about how you came over here, and I didn't know you did that on your own. That'd be really interesting to hear. Yeah. So what part of the Philippines are you from, and how did that happen?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it could relate to our show. Grew up in the big city, Manila. But when I was young,
it's not just an envelope.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you watch Muhammad Ali?
No, I'm not that old.
Oh, okay.
But in my formative years, this is between 5 and 8, I think. My parents had brought me to the U.S. with the intent to live here, move permanently. but because of business stuff, business commitments, we went back. But I was here twice, and I even attended kindergarten, first grade. I remember all of that. I remember Disneyland. I remember all of the first world privileges and the sights, the sounds. When they took me back to the Philippines, a third world country or a developing nation, right? I noticed the stark difference. And in my immaturity, of course, I go, why did we move back here? I couldn't understand it. So you can imagine, as a young boy, I'm just perplexed by the difference.
Can you give us a handle of some of those differences? Can you list off a few things that we can have a handle on what?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
so,
like some really concrete tactile.
Yeah, sure. Like, so middle class, right? Middle class family back then. You had carpets, you had four walls, you had lighting, you had heating, air conditioning, you had running water, right? You compare that to the Philippines.
In the PI. Oh, you mean
no,
here?
Here, right?
Oh, okay.
Here, right.
And this is the 70s, the 80s.
Yeah, 70s, in the 70s. All right, 70s.
Okay.
And then compare that to the Philippines, where a typical middle class person would have, unfinished walls, unfinished flooring, electricity that you can't depend on, running water you can't depend on, plumbing you can't depend on, because of the heat and humidity. Things are just, they rot easily. So anyways, you compare those kinds of things, and then you compare the infrastructure, you compare the systems, the bureaucracy, all of that stuff. And I go, what's going on here? So that perplexed me for years. And I think that became part of my formation, trying to understand why in the United States, why in America, you have things that work, things that make sense, things that are rational. And then you have something in a developing nation like the Philippines back then in the 70s, where things really don't work. Infrastructure wasn't really there. And by the way, that's not even a negative thing. I'm not saying anything. That's just,
you're just
culture.
Describing.
I'm just
describing. You're not evaluating.
Right. So at some point I realized it's a difference in culture, in priorities, and what people value. And guess what? I picked the United States. I go, I'm going to the United States where I want to flourish. So it's as simple as that. It's a difference in priorities, different in imaginations. And there's all sorts of reasons why that is. Now, of course, you and I, the three of us here, believe that we're all created in God's image. So we have the potential to be full human beings the way God created us to be. But because of the fall, obviously, I think, and what we do to each other, that's resulted in some evils in the world. So yeah, there's we can evaluate certain cultures and say, this culture is good at this, and this, and this culture is good at this and this. But guess what? Here are some of the bad things of this culture, and here are some of the bad things from another culture. Now, each of those items, they actually do have values attached to them. So if you have a culture that values life, human dignity, they'll probably flourish better than a culture that cares less about those things. And so they do manifest in different ways. It'll come out. Like, here's a good example, right? Pedestrians have the right of way here.
Yeah.
And
that is a good example.
And we know why, right? Because human beings are valuable. They have the right of way no matter what. We want to protect them. We are careful, and you don't mess with human beings. That's important. In the Philippines or in other nations, pedestrians aren't a priority. Now, in their hearts and in their minds, yeah, they are a priority.
That's good.
But somehow it doesn't manifest in their laws. And
yeah,
but see, that trickles down into other things. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think I can pin those specific examples to how the rest of culture might interact with other things too. So
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's
yeah, I
sort of my
mean,
story. Yeah.
that's great. The pedestrian example is wonderful because, of course, there's human beings driving the cars, but those people are more powerful.
That's right.
And so our privilege or protection of people say you live in a privileged country. Well, our protection of private property and persons go hand in hand in a sense. It's about vulnerability. We protect those people that are vulnerable. We don't do it consistently though, like
Correct.
with abortion.
I
But
know.
there is a history and tradition. You do have those blips about abortion, but there's a history and tradition that's grounded in fundamentally a Christian worldview or something so close to it. It's certainly compatible with it. And then you do have blips on the radar like Roe versus Wade, and you do have slavery at the
Yeah.
beginning, not worth laughing about, but it's so absurd with the founding principles that it produces a nervous laughter.
Mm.
It not a humorous laughter, but an absurd reaction because it's so painful to think about how ridiculous that is and how horrid that was. That it's kind of like how a lot of Jews laugh at Hitler. That's like seems like the most appropriate thing sometimes because it's so horrific. How do you deal with it? It's overpowering.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of looking at it. Because how else do you react to something like that?
Yeah, that's right. You found yourself at Biola University somehow. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, no, that's a good one too. So,
Well, actually, you didn't even tell us how you got to America, so you might want to start with that if you can.
oh yeah,
Is it
so
legal?
oh yeah. Was I a legal alien back then? Yeah, sure. It's funny, huh? Legal alien, like they seem so ironic together. No, I mean, my last name is Edwards. That's not a Filipino name. So my great grandfather was from Benton, Pennsylvania, Caucasian. My father was an American US citizen. So coming here to the US was no problem at all. When I was 17, having done 1 year of college there in the Philippines, I just had it. I had it. And like I mentioned, ever since I could remember, that whole idea that human flourishing, of course, I didn't know the term human flourishing back then, but I go, the difference between the US and the Philippines will be the difference where I can flourish as a human being, where my curiosities would be satisfied. And before I even knew all of the words and the language, I just felt like there was safety here. There was, I could realize my potential.
Did you speak English growing up?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Do you speak any Tagalog?
I speak Tagalog. Yeah, I
You
understand.
do?
Speak it. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I can. Yeah, I consider myself right there in the middle in terms of culture. I think I totally understand American culture. I totally understand Filipino culture. I'm right there in the middle.
Harry, did you always have this confidence? Because I'm thinking of you as a kid and you're from the big city. Do you think that helped you? Like, what if you were out there in the sticks? Because the PI is a big place. There's a lot of like out in the middle of nowhere places in
the boondocks, right? Yeah.
So the fact that you're in the big city, do you think that helped give you the confidence to come to America? And
No, the confidence I gained,
Okay.
again, this is all, by God's grace, obviously. The confidence I had was, in my mind, it was a matter of life and death, to be honest, because I knew the difference and I had a choice I knew what it was like. See, again, it's sometimes we are held back by lack of imagination and many reasons for that. But I had that spark in terms of having tasted the West. And so, yeah, I could. So, yeah, I was not a normal Filipino boy growing up because in the back of my mind, I knew something better, you know.
You already saw outside the cave.
That's right. You got it. Beyond the shadows. Yeah.
Was that because of your granddad Edwards, the one that was
No. Because my folks had taken me here twice. So my first everything.
How long were those trips?
Yeah, probably a total of maybe 2-3 years. So a lot of my formative years, I want to say, were born here, began here, germinated here.
Okay.
So again, it's one of those, you know, when I look back, I go, that was kind of strange growing up, right? Because here are my friends, and it always plays in my mind. I go, I wonder if they know that there's another world out there. I wonder if they know that this could be done this way instead. I wonder if they can imagine some of the joys and some of the experiences I've had, you know? And so that was kind of an interesting time, you know. I'm sort of reflecting back on me and my friends. It's like I have this person beside me, literally evaluating every time I'm dealing with people, because I go, yeah, you know, I hear you, but no, I mean, but have you considered this? Have you considered that? And so I always had this, maybe like you said, confidence, knowing that worst case scenario, there's this lifeboat type thing. I can always jump in there. And in a sense, I did. I kind of just at 17, I took off, stayed with relatives here, and you know, I had my.
How'd you get the money for the ticket?
My folks. Yeah.
Oh, did you steal it, or they give it to you?
With their blessing.
Oh, with their blessing. Oh,
yeah. No,
we were
remember
looking for that rebellion, and
that's
it.
There was not that rebellious stage. Nothing there.
There was nothing in that.
No
story.
Door slamming.
Not even a door slam. I was talking about, like, you know.
I literally just told my parents, that is it. I am done. I am gonna wilt here. So if you want me to be, you know, to experience my full potential, I need to not be here, I said. And I think that convinced them. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to darken the doors of the Bible Institute of Los Angeles? And
that story right there. So
well, wait, real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
When you came over, did you stay with your grandparents?
No, I stayed with my uncles and aunts.
Here there in California.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead now.
Yeah.
Well, when he says really quick, he really means it. Like he said, like after we're done recording, he'll say, Harry didn't say that quick enough. He did not listen to me. I tried to tell him.
You can take your time now, Harry.
Yeah. That's fine. How did I end up at Biola?
We want to hear about Grandpa Edwards too. Did he play any role in your life at all?
Oh,
besides
well, not Grandpa Edwards. No, my great grandfather, my grandfather. Yeah, it was my great grandfather who was from Benton, Pennsylvania.
So you had the last name the whole time.
That's right.
That same last name.
Yeah. I had the same last name.
Okay.
By the way, because of that last name, so my second boy, of course, guess what I could not resist naming him as?
Oh,
Victoria?
Boy, come on.
I was thinking, you know, the monarch, the English monarch, you know, Edwardian, Victorian.
Yeah. Curtis, I think you could have guessed, right? Yeah. So yeah, my second boy named after the great Jonathan Edwards. And he was born almost 300 years to the day of the great Jonathan Edwards.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course I look, you know, am I somehow related to him? That would have been cool, but no, I think there's no relation. So he's got a lot of pressure Poor guy. A lot of pressure on his on him. My goodness.
That is such a nerdy thing
I
right
know
there.
it is. It's a nerdy thing.
Can't
but-
imagine what it's like being in the hospital waiting, and you're like going through this Rolodex of theological names. You're like, Saint Anselm? No,
No, Jonathan, of course.
doesn't work.
Pretty cool.
They're all poured
Zwingli.
into Jonathan Edwards, all of the traditional,
That's right.
great theologians,
Fits
philosophers.
your theology, fits everything.
That's right. Oh my goodness. He's probably gonna hate me for that. Poor guy. Poor
Well,
guy.
that's what counseling's for. That's okay.
Yeah. Harry, you said you did a dissertation. What did you do your dissertation on?
I knew you'd ask that. I need to get the title just right because I was proud of that title. The dissertation title was, oh my goodness, I'm blanking out right now. But anyways, it was on Gen Z. It was on Gen Z, specifically how to reach Gen Z. And my subtext, all right, let me see if I can, all right, here's the title. Defending and Contextualizing the Gospel for Gen Z, and then the subtitle was A Chastened Rationalistic Approach to Christian Apologetics. There you go.
Mm.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a mouthful. What does it mean?
I know. So you have Gen Z. It's anyone born between 1996 and 2015. So
That's me.
sure. And they happen to be the largest generation alive right now in the
You're
US.
saying they weigh the most?
Yeah, there you go.
These people
no-
are really, really
yeah.
fat.
Yeah, there's about I think 60 million of them, if I'm not mistaken. A lot. And they're the largest, right? And
lot.
Scary.
the significant generation, and they're
That's
growing
scary,
up.
dude.
It's scary.
You're
Yeah.
scaring me.
Yeah. Well, here's the scariest part, all right, of that. According to Barna research, only 4%, so 4 out of 100 of them grow up with a biblical worldview.
Wait, say that number again.
4%.
4.
4%. So when
Wow.
I'm talking to young people, right, I
We're
tell them,
screwed.
I know, I tell them, look to the left, look to the right, look at your buddies. More than likely they don't know the story of Noah's Ark. More than likely they don't know Moses. They don't know parting of the Red Sea. They don't know the disciples. They don't know, so on and so forth, right?
You don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know. Yeah, sure. So unlike, like here, we're talking
Thanks a
here.
lot, Harry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah. So anyways, I think it's a crisis moment that we have. And the traditional apologetics methods, while, they're cool and everything, I don't think they work with the vast majority of them. Hence the chastened rationalistic part of the
So
title.
so you're saying like a lot of the presumption of what currently is done is that that is approaching that churched person. And now we're approaching an unchurched person, and the application needs to change.
Agreed. Exactly. The language has changed. They don't know what truth is, or truth is relativistic, those kinds of things.
Why is it chastened, though? You said it's a chastened rationalistic. So what do you
Because
mean
I
by
sort
that?
of go, shame on you, rationalists, shame on you. You think that if you convince them of a truth, that behavior ensues, that behavior follows. So
Oh.
that's pretty much our approach to education today. You memorize things, you spit it out in an exam or oral presentation, whatever, and then we expect behavior to follow. So when it comes to, sermons or Sunday school lessons or whatever, we say, love God and love others. Great. It's in the Bible. Now go and love others and love God, right? That's a truth. But does that happen? No. It doesn't happen. Now, maybe, prior to the Enlightenment, at least they would be scared and go, oh my goodness, am I following God's will? Am I obeying God's will? I better, because God's going to punish me. I don't want that. Or the pastor says so, or my parents says so I got to follow, that doesn't work today.
What degree did you get? What degrees do you have?
Yeah, it was a DMin, a doctor of ministry.
Oh, okay. A demon?
I know.
You're
I'm
saying the
possessed by
top
a demon.
ministry degree is called a demon? It's
I
named
know,
after
isn't
a demon?
And then it messed up, right?
They didn't think that went through very well.
No, I know. Huh?
It
I'm a
reminds,
demon.
yeah, it reminds me of the zoo at Moorpark College. The zoo is a part of an exotic training program. It's the only zoo, I think, at a community college. It's a place I worked my first teaching job for many years, Moorpark College, and they abbreviated it Exotic Animal Training and Management, EATM, EATM. And they're monkeys and they're lions and it's like, I don't know.
Eat them.
They didn't think that through, I don't think.
Yeah. So doctor of ministry, there you go.
Awesome.
I should stop saying demon, right? But I love looking at people's reactions when I say that. I go, yeah, you probably don't know theology, or you don't know any of this.
Did you have any
seminary
apologetics
stuff.
people on your committee, or was?
Well,
how's that work? Do you have a committee? I don't even know
Yeah.
how the D-Min works.
Yeah. It's everything like a PhD, except there's more emphasis in the practical side of things. So yeah, there's a dissertation. I did a defense of it and everything, but there's always the practical component to it. So, which I appreciated.
What was that? What did that look like? What did you have to do for that?
Well, like for instance, part of my dissertation was sort of a pedagogical approach to doing that chastened rationalistic thing. So yeah, the practical part is, how do we teach from that framework?
Now, do you talk to Gen Z people a lot, and do you have a lot of practice doing apologetics with that age group?
Not directly them, but I hope and wish through the ministry that I'm involved with, apologetics.com, that we are encouraging, we're instructing and teaching and discipling those who are teaching Gen Z. So that's my hope and prayer. So we do have a weekly radio show that is broadcast live here in Los Angeles. It's not exactly prime time because it's midnight, Friday midnight, from midnight to 1. But we always joke with each other and say we're prime time, driving time in China and Hong Kong and Philippines. They can always tune in through the internet, right? But anyways, no, I mean, LA is huge. And so we do have some listeners that call in. And then that program gets put on our podcast and on our site. And
Okay.
yeah, a big part of what we do is cultural apologetics. That's what we do.
Oh, really? Like what?
Like, we take things that are culturally relevant in the West, I guess, and we try to establish a bridge between those who are into it or are part of it or love it. And then we point them ultimately to God as the giver of good things,
So that's on midnight to 1 a.m. What day of the week again?
Yeah, Friday midnight to 1 a.m. Yeah, that's KKLA 99.5 FM. Yeah, KKLA. Yep. Yeah, we've been doing that, Curtis, for 22 years.
I never realized that you did the radio show along with the website.
Yeah. We've been doing it for 22 years. And Sanjay at one point had a time hosting it.
Yeah. He invited me on one time.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't go on. It was so late. I couldn't believe how late it was. I was like, I don't know, man. And I think I had to drive somewhere. Back then you had to drive to get into the studio. I think it was in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was Glendale, in Glendale.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know my way around back then. Now I do, because I've been an adjunct professors for 15 years in LA. So now I know exactly which alleys I can pee in and which don't have cameras. And,
so that was you one night when I saw you.
Well, was it Pico Rivera?
Oh my goodness,
that's cool. That's where Frank Pastore was on. He was on there for a long time.
Yeah.
Apologetics.com.
Yeah,
you have been doing that a while.
Yeah, even during the days when you saw me at the bookstore at Biola. Yeah.
So was it always on Friday nights?
Yes, always Friday nights.
Okay. So did you ever, when you were managing the bookstore, did you ever work on Saturdays?
No, rarely. Yeah.
Rarely?
Yeah. Rarely.
Okay. Because you were always like, you probably looked like you were out partying the night. Everybody would get the wrong impression of Harry. Like, okay, why is he so tired?
Yeah, partying in the studio.
Yeah, Saturday. Sure. What's going on here?
He went out Friday nights drinking.
Yeah.
You got do you still drive into the radio area?
Yeah, so I do. We're still old-fashioned that way. Yeah, old school that way. But it's not, I don't do it every Friday. So we've got a team of volunteers who we take turns hosting it. I do it once a month. That's my thing. Like I do it the last Friday of every month, or the fourth Friday of every month is when I do it.
What's the prep time for that for you? Like, what's your process for putting together?
For doing that? Yeah. So the last series, I want to call it a series, we tackled a book.
Cool.
So
that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, so we would do a chapter a week, and then I had two other regular panelists, and we would read the chapter, and then we would just discuss the contents, put it in our own context, and interact with the author, that type of stuff. And then if we feel like it, we would take calls. Now, we had to decide, would it be more of an entertaining show where
you got to decide that right away.
We got to decide that right away. So in the beginning, it was more, let's get callers. It's fun. But then in this last series, we decided to make it more infotainment. There you go. Infotainment. Information, and keep it lighthearted. So we didn't take callers. And so we try to get the hard stuff and make it palatable to the rest of our culture. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah. So these books that you choose, they all have pictures, right? And
of course, man.
Hold up the book.
Like this one, right? Like this one, That's
beautiful. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's the last one we did before. Right there. Yeah.
Paul Gould.
Shout out to Paul Gould right there. Yeah, he knows.
He wouldn't know me, but I met him one time, or maybe two times. So you tackle a book and you take the whole hour just like talking about a chapter or something, or?
Yeah, we take a whole hour talking about a chapter. So the way we divide it would be like at the bottom of the hour, or like at 12:30 mark, that's when we have a break. But I can easily compartmentalize it into 4 different sections, the first fourth, the second fourth, and then a break, and then the third fourth, and then the fourth. And that's an easy way to break it.
How much editing do you do for your podcast, or do you slice and dice and do all
Yeah.
sorts of fancy footwork, or what do you just
Yeah,
get it up
'cause-
there? You're just like,
no,
yeah, just get it up there.
Yeah, just get it out there, raw, whatever. Unless there's some really weird stuff. Like for instance, sometimes when we take calls, and here's the challenging thing: you can imagine at midnight in a big city, we ask for callers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kinds of calls you get in LA, right? There's always the common theme of what about Melchizedek, or what about the Nephilim,
Do you believe in the giants? Yeah.
Yeah, you always get those. There's a theme. We call it the Melchizedek calls, and that's really bizarre, and
What about Bitcoin?
so
It's like, wait,
if there's a long part of that, we just cut it out. But for the most part, 90% of the time, it's just beginning to end. There it is. Just put it up there.
That's good.
Yeah, that's our approach. Just whatever, here, whatever. So maybe if you can get 10% out of it, that's great. 5% out of it, that's great. It's just out there. Love it or leave it.
Harry, I see some books I recommend. For example, I can see behind you. I think I see Doug Grotice's big, thick Christian Apologetics.
Oh yeah, of course. That's a staple. It's there somewhere. I don't have the recent one. Looks like you're using it as a mic stand right there, right?
I got the recent one.
Yeah,
Doug sent it to me.
Yeah, I love it.
We had him for our Easter Good Friday special.
Yeah.
So,
Doug is a beast, my goodness, when it comes to writing. Wow.
He was one of my professors at Denver Seminary.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of help do you need, Harry? What would be helpful? What do you need to get further up down the road on your ministry? How could people help you and find you?
Besides donating large sums of money? Yeah.
Okay. Donating? Is that what
Don't
you do?
donate. Yeah.
Donation?
Well, donation. Sure.
Okay.
The church needs to get behind
Be
all of
prepared
us
to
are
get a
doing.
lot of Bitcoin, because there's all these Bitcoin people that follow us. And
Oh,
so if you
right.
don't know what to do with that, you'll get a lot of thumb drives in the mail. So just, be ready. Don't throw it away.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Don't think it's like some kind of weird stuff on there.
Not virus or anything. Yeah.
Hopefully not.
I'll consult with you then if I ever get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be like $1 million. So
there you go.
Yeah. I don't understand it myself, but
no, seriously, prayer for sure. Prayer is the number one thing we need. For 22 years, I've always dreamed of doing this full time. I'm finally getting to the half-time, but the pay isn't there. But I've committed in the last few months to actually raise funds for to do this half-time. And then the other half-time, I'm the associate pastor here at La Habra Christian Church. So I'm also committed to expanding God's kingdom here in the La Habra Heights area. So no matter what, I'm going to be committed to the church, no doubt. So that's a fun place to be at this point in my life, where I get to do church stuff as well as apologetics things. And many times they merge, right? And so I've got a supportive lead pastor who our mission and vision revolves around the gifting of our leaders. So I love that. It's the gifting of our leaders that come first before we form a mission and vision. I like that.
That's wise.
Yeah.
You mean not working against people's
I know, seriously. How does that work even, right?
What's the name of your church again?
It's La Habra Christian Church.
Okay. Yeah, so
you still live in the same place, right?
Yes.
Okay.
La Mirada area. Yeah.
La Mirada. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to church in La Habra Heights, did you say?
That's right. La Habra Heights, California.
That's a nice area.
It's a nice area. Yeah. For any of your listeners, if they're in the California area, Southern California area, or within driving distance, hey, come check us out. Yeah.
Is it in Los Angeles County?
It actually is. Yeah. Like the southernmost part of LA County. Yeah.
La Habra itself is in Orange County.
I think so, yeah. But La
So
Habra
it's kind of,
Heights
it's a little
is,
odd that we,
I
and
know.
it's not, it wouldn't be odd except for there's such a difference between Orange County and LA County on so many things,
That's right.
from concealed carry to whether you have to wear a mask in 24-hour fitness.
Right.
So, yeah, well, you have this apologetics.com that you're working on. What's involved with that you want to develop? What's your vision for that?
Yeah. So my vision for apologetics.com is for the site itself to be a clearinghouse, a sort of clearinghouse for anything apologetics, theology, and philosophy. So the hope and prayer is that when people go there, they have the best of those three things, right? And taken from a cultural perspective. So it's not so much rationalistic apologetics where, all right, here are the premises and here's the conclusion, and there you go, you have belief in God, right? So that's nice, and other people, other experts, they do it really, really well. But we're convinced that our target audience would be your typical church goer, church pew warmer, where they're there, but they're not quite activated in God's kingdom type of a thing. And I have a sense, kind of like me, where it's a Pascalian, and I love Pascal. This is not a dig on Pascal, but it's a fire insurance type of a thing. But they don't know that the fullness of life is there for anyone who, and my thinking is the reason why they're not getting into that fullness of life issue is, and see, this is where I could get tripped up pretty quickly, because I might say, oh, because they're not thinking the right things. Well, we know there's no thinking going on in the culture right now. So, but if they have any kind of thinking, and then if they have what I'm calling the other part that's missing, the discipleship, like people to show them, this is the fullness of life Jesus promises to you. That's what's missing. Then I believe we get activated into the kingdom, and we're not just bench warmers, in fact, right in the beginning of the show, I said, and there are statistics today that show that the church is in decline.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason for that is because believers aren't exercising their spiritual gifts. It's plain and simple. We're just attending church, and we sort of clock in or check that mark saying, all right, I've done my duty and God will love me better. And I'm
some
cool.
are not even doing that.
Some are not even doing that. Yeah, exactly. And people fail to realize, again, going back to my story, that the West, the reason why the West is the way it is because of the biblical foundation it was built upon. And even our we're far removed from the founding fathers, but we're still living, as someone said, on their coin, so to speak. We're still
riding their coattails.
That's right. Yeah, we're experiencing all of the benefits, which is amazing. Even though we have sort of turned our backs from that, it's still the best country in the world. It's just amazing. So can you imagine if we just go back to any of those kinds of things, where we value life no matter where it is and no matter what stage it's in, right? How much, because a lot of the evil follows from that, obviously, that just the value, what is life to begin with, right? But if
Harry, let me just describe what you look like to people that are just listening on the podcast.
Are we live?
You're saying that you're saying this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. You're saying this about the founding fathers and about how great America is.
Yeah.
You have dark skin. You have jet black hair. I don't know how it's still black. How do you do that? You don't have any gray hair. What the heck? And you have you're actually very youthful looking, but you have dark skin. You're from the Philippines.
Yeah.
And you're talking like a red-blooded American. I mean,
Yeah.
you got all
Yeah.
these people that are just
Yeah.
when Trump was elected, I was on the college campuses. I was on Cal State Northridge, for example, in Los Angeles. There are people blocking traffic on the way to work, and these are Democrats blocking other Democrats from getting to work. I mean, they were just losing their minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a How do you handle stuff like that? How did you feel about Trump and all
Yeah.
that?
Sure. Let me back up and also say, I am really sad about how your typical American Caucasian white person does not know how good they have it here. And I mentioned earlier
Wow.
that I feel like I am right there in the middle. I know American culture, I know Filipino culture, right there in the middle. And I'm observing both. And I can tell you for a fact what culture has values that are to be admired more than the other. No doubt about that. There's a difference. We're not all the same in terms of our values. We're all the same in our ontology, right? The fact that we're created in God's image. But anyways, in that project, I actually have one of my good friends who does apologetics.com with me. His name is Jacob Daniel. He's Indian. He's an Indian guy who has his PhD as well, and he also bemoans the fact that America is in decline. You know, the American values are definitely in decline. He's seen it. I've seen it. And so in some ways, we're working to awaken, starting with the church, because the church thrives because of a lot of the American founding principles. And they weren't all Christians, but my goodness, they were all theists, you know. And a lot of them were God-fearing Christians, no doubt about that. And I'm not ashamed to say that, for lack of a better term, and to be maybe simplistic or careless even, that America is a Christian nation. It's not a Muslim nation. It's not a Buddhist nation. So it is a Christian nation. So you asked me about Trump. When in the primaries, I did not vote for him at all. He was like the last of, my pick.
Who was your guy in the primaries?
In the
Bernie?
primaries? I forget. Who was? Oh,
Elizabeth Warren?
One of those guys. I forget now. Was it the guy from, did he run back then? The guy from Florida?
Little Marco?
Well, maybe. Well, no, it was DeSantis wasn't
Marco
on there.
Rubio?
He could have been one
Cruz?
of those guys. Anyway, one of those guys, I think. I forget now. But
okay.
Oh no!
Apparently, it wasn't very memorable.
It wasn't very memorable, right? Nobody remembers the guy anymore.
That's why he didn't win.
But when it was, and this is a principle that, I debate with my really smart friends, are way smarter than me, and they don't get it. But when it became literally a choice between the lesser of two evils, it was Trump, easily.
Yeah.
Why do you think that you get that so quickly, and the so-called smart people have such a hard time with that?
Yeah. The best way to describe it is just sin. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. It's sin. It clouds people's judgment.
Do you think it's pride?
All of those. Yeah. Sin. Yeah.
I think that might be insightful, because
but and the whole principle of the problem of evil, I tested it out with some really, really smart people too. And they said, yeah, easily.
Of course, that's what they're saying about you, Harry. They're saying you are going with that dirtbag. You have sin. This is sinful on your part.
Of course, my goodness. Yeah.
You
Womanizing.
Racist,
yeah.
white supremacist, dark-skinned guy from the Philippines who likes America's founding. Yeah, did you have slaves growing up, Harry? You probably had slaves.
Yeah, probably.
You're an Uncle Tom.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Whatever. Jump and skip away from that to saying that men are women.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I know.
You
I
know,
see what you're
it's
saying.
so bad. It literally, it's so bad, guys, that I imagine how, if I were a Hollywood producer, it'd be nice to see 200 years from now, who would carry on the American tradition? Would it be better? How would it be reformed, and would it actually pass from this land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be honest, what they did was pretty amazing. It's hard to compete with that unless Christ is sitting on his throne, and he is, right? But until that day comes, I think we've got a really, really good system right now. We really do.
Yeah.
And the founding fathers, again, by God's grace.
You mean you're saying you like Biden? That's what you're saying? You like masks?
Currently. Oh my goodness. No, of course.
Oh, okay. Well, you said
Oh,
we have a good system right now. So there's somebody maybe that's in the future
yeah,
listening to
that's
this.
true. That's true.
Somebody's
Yeah.
listening and they're like,
That
wait,
system
what
just
are
put
you?
Biden in office.
Who is this guy again? He said he just voted for. He said he voted for Trump, but now he's saying we have a good system right now. Just for a
Well,
point of
I
clarity,
know
what did you
we
mean
do
by
have
that?
a good system, but every once in a while there's glitches in the system, right?
We got to follow the system.
It's
I
like you
think a
don't
lot of
throw
people
away
think
your
there's a fundamental
computer just
flaw.
because your OS messes up every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
When you say we have a good system, though, I think you mean something specific by that. Did you
Yeah,
have
sure.
some?
Like the separation of powers.
That's constantly under attack.
right.
Yeah.
The obviously our Constitution.
That's constantly under attack.
Yeah, the Bill of Rights. My goodness, right? I
Again.
know. All right. Yeah, but it's been going strong for how many years so far? Yeah, it's
I think
one
you're
of-
saying, yeah, compared to other places where it's far worse, we have a pretty.
That's
What
right.
would you say compared to Europe, though? Is it better compared to Europe? Some people look at England and
Yeah.
they say, I don't know, that looks like a pretty nice place. They don't have
Right,
separation of
right,
power.
right. No, I don't
Parliament
know.
picks the prime minister there.
Right. Exactly. So you don't have necessarily the people picking their premier, right? So I don't know much about that, but I know we came out reforming all of those things, and I think the whole separation of powers, where you have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, each kind of like their own thing, checking each other. That's huge. And what's interesting too, again, because culture right now is just not, with our educational system and maybe the lack of assimilation, we're not understanding the fact that the president is not the king. And yet many assume and behave and act like he is the king. So,
or the county health officer.
all right, all of those kinds of things. And again, coming from my background, where the president almost acts like a king. So you can imagine other cultures where they're immigrating from come here, and they don't participate in the American way because, again, assimilation is bad, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine, multiply that by many voters, and we just go along with whatever anyone says. Whoever is in charge, we go, oh, well, that must be the rule of law. I can't question it. And there you go, So that whole freedom of speech and freedom of inquiry, all of those are being eroded right now. And that is
because people
terrible.
aren't jealous. The average person, first of all, doesn't understand how valuable it is, like what you're saying.
Right.
And they don't understand what the alternative is that's worse.
Yes.
Which those two things go together. There's just a lack of curiosity about that too. And the assumption is that it's they're okay, they're comfortable for the most part, I think, and distracted. It might be that they're distracted
and comfortable. Yeah, those are definitely factors for sure.
I think social media has a lot to do with it because, like, for example, there's a guy named Cal Newport that wrote this book called Deep Work, and the idea about deep work is that people used to be bored. They used to get bored, and it was just a common thing. People got bored. And
Yeah.
what you do when you get bored is you start trying to solve problems. You start becoming aware of problems. You start trying to do hard things to solve them. But like, for example, social media, it takes up the boredom. So people are not bored anymore in the same way they used to be. And so they don't get into the problem solving mode. They never get there. They never get to that part because all of their space is taken up by mindless, useless activity that just keeps whatever that part of the brain is activated. And they never slump into a boredom. They never do deep work. And so I think you have a whole generation that never doesn't know what it means to do deep work. And he says checking your email every 15 minutes while you're writing a paper, that doesn't count as deep work. Deep work is defined as a sustained concentration for 60 to 90 minutes with no distractions. And I don't see people doing that. I know in my teaching, people are constantly checking their phones, even when I'm railing against it. They love taking notes on their computer. I think it's because I don't think they like typing. I think that they want to have the distractions because it's so uncomfortable for them to think about something for 60 minutes.
No, that's right. In fact, I heard some influential guy, he would always punctuate a lot of what he says by saying, if we only stood still for 5 minutes to think about X, Y, Z, we would come to the right conclusion, which tells me, like I said, most people don't do any kind of thinking. Have you ever
seen the film Fast Times at Ridgemont High? It's about the 80s in Los Angeles.
No, sorry, no, I have
Harry
not.
hasn't seen it.
Harry.
I'll put that on my list to watch then.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
I think there is a scene in there. Be careful with young children. Okay. Just want to say that. There is a scene. I think I can't remember, but the scenes I have in mind are in the classroom. Okay. These kids are goofing off. Kids goof off. I mean, they're passing notes. They're doing stuff with their bubble gum. They're zoning out. They're spacing out. Kids get bored easily. Humans get bored easily. Now imagine that disposition, except with social media to fill that space. It's like it does something to your soul, your mind, where those kids at least had a chance to do some deep work because they got the boredom. And sometimes the material was interesting enough where it was better than just being bored. Right. And then you just had to deal with it. And you did deep work. But now you never get to that point because every time you get to that point where it's uncomfortable, you pick up Instagram, you start looking through stories, you pick up Twitter, you pick up the New York Times. You pick up Facebook.
Yeah.
You pick up. Yeah, I used to flip through Calvin and Hobbes like a book, but that's not the same thing because it's one thing. It's a book, and then you move on to something else. You look at the bird, but this other kind of thing is designed to. There's an algorithm that's designed specifically to capture your attention for as long as possible for no reason other than just to have your attention.
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary.
Yeah. You mentioned that book, Cal Newport, right? I think what got him to write about that was, if I'm not mistaken, he decided to do an experiment where he just left all electronic devices for a month, I think, and see what would happen to his soul or something, and then challenge, I believe, some of his friends, and of course they saw the enriching result of that. And but no, you're absolutely right. Social media.
He teaches computer science. He teaches computers, and he doesn't have social media.
That's right,
because he knows better.
That's
And
right.
he said that when he did the work for the book, he was doing such good deep work, his output went up like double
Yeah, yeah,
in other
absolutely.
areas, not just the book, but other areas.
Absolutely. I believe that. Yeah, it is fascinating. It's not that we are curmudgeon about technology, right? It's not that. It's just how do we balance these kinds of things? Like a good author or book, right? You might know the name Hummel. He wrote a book, The Tyranny of the Urgent. I think that's another good book.
That's a great title.
Yeah, he must read. So again, he looks at the things that are.
Say the name again.
Tyranny of the Urgent by Hummel. It's a classic book, short one too, but he makes a distinction between important things versus urgent things. And many times we think what's urgent is important, and then we are governed by the urgent, here, there, and whatever. So, I remember, and I guess you need to have some kind of maturity on this in this media saturated world we're in, where you got a notification for this here, a ping here, or whatever. Number one, turn off those things. Number two, you don't have to check your email every 15 minutes. You don't even have to answer the phone if you don't have to. So there are those kinds of things where we can manage. And like I said, it may take a certain maturity. I don't know, maybe a certain stage in life, but I would encourage everyone to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, and focus on the important and not the urgent. That'll come up, but again, a lot of times we confuse the two.
Yeah. Hey, Harry, can you see what I'm sharing on the screen?
I see our site that you're sharing there. Sure.
It's pretty professionally done, like your
it looks great.
Logo. Thanks.
How'd you come up with the tree logo?
Yeah, so that's our second iteration of our logo. The tree logo, I came up with that because I feel like we want to be, so again, in the project of apologetics, there's many analogies I can draw from a tree. One is it provides a shade, a home for other seekers and believers, I guess. And a tree kind of has this image of growing and being steady and strong. And if you have deep roots, again, we want to be rooted in the gospel. We want to be rooted in truth, good, and beauty. So the tree speaks to that. Our logo before was a little bit more, actually more abstract, where I tried to capture in graphic form maybe the Trinity, which is, I would say, the highest form of knowing, meaning if one spends all their time trying to understand the Trinity, that's one of the highest forms of learning. No, you can attain. And out of the knowledge of the Trinity comes a lot of other things that the study of the Trinity has spurned, has encouraged. And so all of those kinds of things. But I figured, the thing is, with the first logo, people always thought we were, that I was trying to capture some molecule because it looked like that. So I go, that's not very helpful. And if people go, oh, you're a science-based something or whatever. So I go, the tree makes sense more. It's
gotcha.
People can relate to the tree.
Gotcha. What's your connection with Tim McGrew? How did you meet him?
Yeah, so some of those, like if you go to Tim McGrew, Doug Grutais, it's Grutais, right? That's how you pronounce this.
Grutais.
Yeah. Tim McGrew and Doug Grutais, they were recruited by Kurt Jaros, who used to be part of our team, and he's no longer part of our team. And I think those guys are fine to have their, images there, and I think we would elicit, or we would try to get articles from them every once in a while. I call them the throwaway articles, that they don't want, we'll take them.
Okay.
Yeah. I know Dr. Groteis is dedicated to the project of apologetics.
Yes. Yes, he is.
He's mentioned that on his Facebook. So
He's true believer.
yeah. So I can, if I want to, and if we have time, we could just, do a show featuring his books, his ideas, and writings, whatever. Yeah.
And you how do you get money? Is it ads? Are these are there people putting ads on, or what's the business model, I guess I'd say, for lack of a better term? Is it a for-profit? Is it a nonprofit?
We are a 501c3, so nonprofit. So we
You
get
got a certificate program too.
Yeah, that's I did that within the last few months, so that's new. And but anyways, yeah, back to the 501c3. We've been 501c3 for
Hold on, what's your login really quick? Just kidding.
We've been 501c3 from the beginning, so that's a nonprofit organization. So all donations are tax deductible.
What's it take to get that? Do you have to have a board in place? And
having a board, having a mission vision, having a budget, and doing all the paperwork. So I don't know if Curtis, I think in one of our dealings, or one of our, when we talked before, I think I did mention that apologetics.com, the organization and the website, came out of a project when I was doing the MA in Christian Apologetics at Talbot. So instead of writing a paper, I told Craig Hazen, hey, can I form an organization? That's going to be my project. So he goes, oh my goodness, just registering apologetics.com, you get an A already, Wow. So that was good. It's something that'll live on after I'm done, I'm gone, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you pass that on to somebody else? Do you just?
Yeah, no, that's a good, so that's another prayer item. I'm at the point where I want to disciple the next person who will lead it. So I'm looking for a young person who'd like to lead it.
There's a young person out there. It's a young.
Look at that young whippersnapper.
I got to change that photo. My goodness.
That's the way I remember you, Harry.
Yeah, there you go.
Minerva. Wow, your wife's name that's a very famous owl wisdom kind of a.
Yeah, I know.
name.
I know.
That's awesome.
It's kind of cool.
Well, it's been great having you on, Harry. Thanks for taking the time from your day to hang out with us and talk shop with us.
Anytime.
Really,
this is fun.
Catch up.
And I'm glad we have common friends like Julie Sardegna. I forgot to mention, right? The Sardegnas. Yeah. They're very good.
I know
friends.
Julie. I don't know her husband. I knew her when she was Julie Brown.
Got it. Yeah.
Julie Brown.
She's a sharp woman right there.
Yeah, she is.
She is. We love talking about heavy duty stuff. And so is the husband, David. They're both Biola folks. So
lots of Biola people with this apologetic stuff. You're in the right area, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Taking it to the next level.
That's right. Taking it to the next level, guys. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. So again, been an honor and joy.
Let me pray for you right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Lord, we ask that you would have your hand on Harry and his ministry here, that you'd guide it and direct it, that you would bring him to a place of perfect peace, that you would provide the needs, the provision for every need, and even some wants, Lord. We ask for wisdom for Harry and his team, and for this next person to take the reins from Harry and take it into the next generation. And we ask for Harry's work on Gen Z, that you would carry that somehow, some way, to make the world better. It's your world. We know that you love it. Please equip us and help us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Curtis, Lucas, been an honor and pleasure, guys.
Likewise.
Yeah.